So please give a nice, warm WIA welcome to the ever-fabulous Renee Bangelsdorf.
Well, thank you. You know, Eliana, I came here not because Lisa asked me to speak, but because I knew you would introduce me, and you're just amazing. I am dumbfounded by your talent on the stage. And Charlie, I appreciate you too. Thank you so. I mean, I just met you. I haven't known you for years, so I am so pleased to be here. I've gotten to know a few of you over the last 24 hours that I've been here. And I hear that I'm supposed to give my whole life story, all the things that have gone wrong in my presentation, but you only gave me 20 minutes. So I'm only going to talk about a few secrets. I didn't have the slides for the rest of it. So you know this about me before I got to where I am that Eliana talked about. I dropped out of college because I was pregnant, so journalism school dropout. I was a stay-at-home mom. I had no sales experience except what I did, like many of you, when I was 9 years old, selling Girl Scout cookies. I had no management training. I don't even think I had taken an accounting class. And I presumed to come into an industry as this unqualified, inexperienced, soft-spoken, shy woman, and I had to stand out somehow in a crowd of people at conferences where literally there were men who had walked on the moon. There were women who had flown fighter jets after 9/11. I have a client who's a pilot who, between his seat in the cockpit and the cabin, there's no curtain, and he's carried sedated lions in his plane. Another one of my clients has got into an argument with one of the owners that he was flying around, and the guy was Nigerian, threw him into Nigerian jail with a baboon that was in jail because he was a pickpocket. Like, I've had that story verified. So he's like, yeah, I contracted malaria in a jail cell with a pickpocketing baboon. I'm like, how do you stand out in an industry where there are people like that? And there was one way that I could stand out, and that was just by being authentic, by being a woman. And so I did that, started a business with my husband. It's called Charlie Bravo Aviation. You can see that I picked how to stand out. I gave our logo my hair color, just so I kind of fit in the industry. And then I presumed to tell people that I could sell their $5 or $10 or $50 million jet. And eventually I did just that. The first deal I closed completely on my own was a $30 million Gulfstream, and I did it scared, not just every day, Lisa, but every single minute. I was terrified. Today, I speak on stages around the world. I tell people what their private jets are worth, and I talk around the world, usually as the only woman, as you can see here, and I talk about how the US economy is affecting luxury markets. And if you want to hear the story and my stories of all of that, Eliana mentioned that I have a book. I'll be selling it for $10 at lunch today. You can also pick up a copy of Lisa's if you didn't get that yesterday. She mentioned yesterday we co-authored one together a few years ago. So that's available at lunchtime today for $10, or you can pick it up on Amazon. But what I'm here today to talk to you about is not selling jets, because none of you need to know how to do that, at least not right now. I'm here to talk to you about some lessons that I've learned along the way. So I've learned that it's not enough just to stand out. I stand out as a woman in a very male-dominated industry. You must also stand up. And that's what I want to talk to all of you about today. You have to own your role and your success. It doesn't just happen to you. And you have to do it even when the odds are stacked against you, even when you're the only woman in the room or one of the few women in your role in your industry. It's very important to stand up, not just stand out. So I'd like to know just a little bit, how many people in the room have some sort of hiring authority? How many of you are in a managerial role and you can hire people? Okay, that's almost half of you. So I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but I'm going to say a few words to you about the importance of your role. Company leaders need to stand up for diversity and inclusion. This is so important. It comes from the top and it filters all the way down. It doesn't matter if the hiring, if HR is bringing in women, if the company leaders aren't driving inclusion and saying how important this is. Adam yesterday was passing out mangoes, but he was also passing out advice about how to include people in the workforce, and super important. So there are 3 reasons that's important. One is that companies that have leadership that represents their customer base are more relevant to their clients. I know probably not all of you are as old as me, but there was a movie that I loved in the 80s called Mr. Mom. And Michael Keaton and Diane Garr were in this movie, and they had a role reversal, which wasn't so popular in the 80s, but he became Mr. Mom, and she was out in this advertising world telling men how to advertise to women because she was a woman, and she was hugely successful because of that. I heard yesterday that women buy more cars than men, so there should be more women in leadership roles than there should be men in this industry. Just saying. People want to work where they see others like them. How many of you have looked for a job and you've gone to the leadership page of the website and been like, wow, that's all men. I don't think they hire women in leadership, or I can't be promoted in leadership here. And so it's really important that we show that women, that minorities can be successful in the places that we work. And then third, I don't know about your industry. I'm guessing with this tight job market that y'all are having trouble finding employees and good ones, just a guess. I know in my industry, there's a big pilot shortage. I don't know how many of you noticed that there was probably a man, and he was probably older than you, flying on your airplane when you came here a couple days ago to come to this conference. 50% of today's airline pilots will retire in the next 5 years. There is a big shortage of talent, mechanics and pilots in aviation. I'm guessing that there's a similar story in automotive, because I hear some of that. So it's very important. Now, I'm gonna stop talking to the managers at this point, and I'm gonna talk to everyone now, because this is what my industry looks like. I think the dude in the front row, that's me in the front in the red dress, all men, and the dude in the front row, he dyes his hair. They're all gray-haired. He does, I know him. He's like 80 years old with black hair, jet black hair. Anyway, it's not enough just to stand out. I mean, I stand out, but we also have to stand up. And there are 4 ways that I believe that we as women can stand up. And I think it's really important that we do all of these things. Number 1, we need to stand up as role models. There's a study that we've done. I sit on the board of a similar organization to this called the International Aviation Women's Association. And we represent women in 38 different countries. And we recently did a survey with Korn Ferry. And what we found is that more than 50% of women interviewed in aviation and aerospace indicated that they don't even have one female role model. I don't know if it's the same in your industry or not, but the way that we get more role models is that we become role models. And so I want to talk to you about a couple of ways that you can do that. So number 1, we sit at the table. We participate. We let people see us doing our job. We show up, and we show up well. Number 2, and I love this, I told Subi this last night, I love how many opportunities there are at this conference for women to speak. But we need to do that. We need to be willing to get on a stage, even if it makes us nervous. We need to be willing to speak up at a board table. Lisa talked about that yesterday, speaking when she was scared on dealer council. We need to use our voices. We need to take leadership in projects. If we're put on a committee or a task force, if we have the opportunity to participate in something extra, we need to go the extra mile and actually take a leadership role in that, do a little bit more so that we can grow and so that people notice that we're growing. And then lastly, we need to be authentic. It is so important for us to say, you know what, I'm a woman, I've got some PMS going today, I am having a really bad day. And we need to be authentic and not try to be the woman of steel all of the time. We have to be willing to show weakness or people can't relate to us. And when we're leaders, which all of us are in this room, we have to be authentic. So we need to stand up as role models. I talk about this in my podcast. This is the one. I've interviewed women from all sorts of different industries. We all have the same issues going on in our lives. Women need to stand up as champions of other women. This is vitally important, and I have 2 ways that we do that. So, number 1, we cheer and challenge each other in positive ways. And this is a stretch for me, being on stage. And it started about 13 years ago. My friend Lisa, who all of you probably know it's very difficult to say no to, any of you who have ever talked to her, Lisa decided that because I was tall and thin, I was going to be in her charity fashion show. But she didn't know that I had stage fright, and there was no way I was going to be in that charity fashion show. But you don't say no to Lisa, and Lisa's like, I got you 3 outfits, you're going to be on stage, you're going to do great. So I showed up, and I'm like, Lisa, I cannot do it. I know some of these people out here, our pastor is sitting in the front row, I'm going to fall off the stage into his lap, it's going to be a thing at church, oh my God. Lisa, I cannot do this, I can't do it. But Lisa cheers and challenges people. And she did something that I will never forget, and I brought it to share it with you today. Lisa snatched me by the back of the head and clipped in a fabulous Texas-style clip-in ponytail. Oh, yeah. And said, girl, get out there, be a Texas woman, and work that updo. And I was so nervous about working that updo that I forgot all about the pastor in the front row whose lap I was going to fall into. And guess what? I didn't fall into his lap. I didn't make a fool out of myself. But the thing that I learned that day is that sometimes you have to let people push you into a bigger role. She invited me to apply to speak here to you, and it's in the same lines. We have to champion one another. And the other thing that I have to say about this, and I am so passionate about this, absolutely zero tolerance for bullying. It is a sad day when we see men, zero. It is a sad day when we see men bullying women, and it happens. It happens to me. It's happened to every single one of you in this room. But it is atrocious when we see women bullying other women. And y'all, the numbers of this are overwhelming. The number of women in male-dominated industries who say the hardest thing is being bullied by other women. We just can't do it. So the third thing, so role models, being a champion, the third thing is that we need to stand up to be considered for promotion or opportunity. And I use the word, not stand, and everyone wanted me to have a one-word title for my book. I said, no, it's stand up. It's taking a different posture. It's going from sitting to standing. You get more air in your lungs. You say, I'm ready. I'm ready to be a leader. I'm ready to do something different. I'm ready to take a move. But you have to stand up for that. And I have a couple ways that I think that we can indicate our readiness in this. Number one is that we dress, act, or talk like we're already in that position. So if you want to be in management, dress like how you see managers in your organization dress. If you want to be a finance person, start learning the lingo of finance and learn all those acronyms that people say in the F&I department, it's really important that we begin learning this. If you want to be a pilot, my daughter's rolling her eyes in the front row here, you learn the acronyms for flying. We say no to comfort zone items that don't promote growth. There are lots of things that we do that, oh, it's just easy for me to do this, so I'll just do this. There are some things you need to let go of so that you can take on bigger challenges in your life. You need to say no to some of those things. Along those same lines, we make stretch goals. So we make goals for ourselves that are a big stretch. I have a sales goal for myself this year that is a big stretch for me. And then, this may be the hardest part, we tell someone what that stretch goal is. And we might even tell someone who can help us get it done. I know we heard about sponsors and mentors yesterday. We need to tell someone who can hold us accountable for doing some of those things. So we're standing up for opportunity. We're standing up as role models. We're standing up as champions. And lastly, we need to stand up even if we have to do it alone. I interviewed a woman for my podcast who was the first female pilot at Western Airlines. Western Airlines was bought by Delta Airlines, and she was one of very few female pilots at Delta Airlines. But someone in her life had stood up before her. Her mom was a woman air service pilot in World War II, so her mom had been a pilot, and she decided that she wanted to be a pilot. But y'all, she had to stand up and ask for maternity uniforms. She had to stand up and ask that a female pilot didn't wear the same uniform as a male pilot. She had to stand up and say, could I please have a ladies' room in the crew lounge at every single airport in the United States? Because men were pilots and men had men's bathrooms. There was just one bathroom. She was not going in there while they were all using the urinal. She wanted her own bathroom, and she had to fight for that with a few other women. In 28 years as an airline pilot, she flew 5 times with another woman sitting in the other seat with her. 5 times in 28 years. She stood up. Today, both of her daughters are pilots as well. So we really have to think about standing up even if we're alone, because we never know who might be watching. For me, standing up in a male-dominated industry, I've got one of these. She's here today. I made her take a break from flight training to come over. My daughter is almost done with her commercial pilot training license. In her initial ground school class, there were 20 people. 3 of them were women. So it's still very male-dominated. And then I'm hoping that none of you can believe this, but I also do this because there's another generation that might be watching. This is my granddaughter, Clara. She is 4 months old. Love of my life. So I want to ask you today, I talked about 4 ways that you can stand up to make a difference. And I want to ask you to do something with me today, because I've learned that it takes a lot to stand up if you're alone. But if you stand up with others, things start to change and you don't feel so isolated. So if you would be willing to stand up, even if you were the only one, if you would be willing to stand up and be a role model, if you would be willing to stand up and be a champion of other women, or if you're willing to stand up and say, I am ready for promotion, would you stand up right now? Doesn't it feel powerful? So, all of you people who raised your hand at the beginning of this presentation and told me you were a hiring manager, this is the future of automotive. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.